Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. So I was driving home from work the other day and I seen a car for sale on somebody's lawn. I said to myself, I wonder how much they're asking for. Can you guess how much I paid for it? Can you guess what the car is?
Alright, so while you're
Stick
guessing
around.
how much I paid for this car, I want to let you know that you did read the title right. I did make a $1,900 profit from this vehicle, and I did it 100% the legal way. And you can do it as well. Now bear with me because this video is a little bit longer than what I wanted to, but there's just too much information and too much things for you to see that I didn't want to keep anything from you, and I also wanted to show you exactly what I went through and how I did it. I also want to tell you that you don't have to be a car expert, but you do have to be mechanically inclined. This is not just about buying a car, cleaning it, washing it, giving it a full detail, make it completely beautiful, turn around and sell it. Meaning you just have to be able to put in the work and figure out how things work and how to fix them if you want a larger profit margin like I did. Now stay with me because I will reveal how much additional money I had to put into this car, where did I get my parts from, and how much I sold it for, and how much profit I ended up making from it. And I'm sure by the time you get done watching this, you'll be convinced yourself that if you find a similar vehicle around your area, you'll be able to do this yourself as well.
So to give you a quick summary of what happened, I was driving home from work and I seen this car sitting on somebody's lawn with a for sale sign on. I said to myself, let me turn back around. So I did. I get out of my car, I go to this car, I walk around. It's pretty dirty. It's got a black tarp or a black plastic bag sitting barely covering the right rear passenger window. Well, guess what? I mean, they did a poor job covering it because you could tell that that thing was almost blown away because there's dust and there's leaves and there's all kinds of stuff going into the car. It smells pretty musty, mildew. I said water got in here. So I got the number. I called the customer, or the owner, I'm sorry. And yeah, sure enough, she says that the right rear window's not working and that the car has an engine problem. The engine problem is an oil pressure light that keeps coming on and it won't go back off. Check out the car. I had to jump start it. I start the car. Yeah, there's some tap. So I describe it as a brief tap just because after it warmed up for about 30 seconds, it slightly went away. I said, you know what? I don't think this car has an oil pressure problem. I think it has an electronic oil pressure light problem, but I don't think the engine has a mechanical oil pressure problem. So after looking at the car, the AC wasn't working, the window doesn't go up, it's got the oil pressure problem, and the tires need replacement, they look a little choppy. Overall, the body of the car doesn't look that bad, so I said, you know what? We'll go ahead and pick it up. So I drive it home. That's right, I drove it home, and sure enough, I made it down because it's only 4 miles from that person's house to my house, and it's sitting right here in the garage. So the car is a 2010 Volkswagen CC. It's got 114,000 miles on it, 119 I believe, I'm sorry. And sure enough, here's the window, and that's how it was. Now they had a piece of plastic bag over here, but you know, these type of doors, they don't have a frame here, so obviously that's why the wind kept on blowing it away. Headliner's sagging a little bit. Overall, it's got leather interior. The body, like I said, the body looks in good condition. Just needs a little cleanup. There's leaves everywhere. There's leaves in the cowl. Need to wash it. Maybe even wax it and buff it. And it's got the 2.0 liter engine. But what I wanted to show you was that since it's been sitting here, because I haven't had any time to touch it, 3 days, I would say, roughly after I parked it, it's developed quite some oil leak right here. Maybe that has to do with the oil issue. Hopefully not. Other than that, it's a pretty good looking car. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna race it up, see where that leak's coming from first, and fix that engine oil pressure issue first. I disconnected the battery because the very few times that I was coming inside the garage, actually I heard a little buzzing, tapping type of noise from either the rear passenger door or somewhere inside, and I think that may be related to the window issue. So we'll look into that later. Other than that, the car looks real good. So yeah, we'll see what kind of surprises I'm gonna find.
Alright, so while I set this car on jack stands, let me tell you the first step. You can either call or visit your local DMV, Department of Motor Vehicles website, and make sure it has a .gov at the end. That's how you could be sure that you're getting reliable information, because a .gov is usually an official government agency's website. So make sure you look for how many vehicles you could sell without a dealer's license, and it'll usually tell you the number of vehicles if your state allows it. In my particular state, it says 2 within 12 consecutive months. So this is how I know that if I haven't sold any vehicles, or if I sold one, at least I could sell one more within that 12-month period, and I wouldn't be violating any state laws. Alright, so now that you're sure that you could do this, the next step is finding a car. Now I would suggest to stay off Facebook Marketplace, since to be that nowadays is the most popular platform to find a used vehicle, but there's just a lot of competition. And that's just my personal opinion based on the experience that I had.
We found our leak, and it's actually pretty good news. Our leak is coming from the oil drain plug gasket. So you see right there, a little drop. It's been developing over weeks, and that's what's caused that puddle. So that's some good news, because all we have to do is just change the oil drain plug gasket. Overall, the bottom of it looks pretty solid. No rust, no other leaks. Well, we'll clean it up real good. We'll drive it and make sure it doesn't have any other leaks, because there's a little bit of moist here around the where the engine and transmission meet up. But other than that, everything looks okay. Belt looks pretty good. Yeah, no other leaks from here.
The best for me is when you drive around your neighborhood, or even expand further out of your neighborhood, and just drive around and see what cars are out there. Sometimes people just don't feel like dealing with consistent messaging back and forth, and they just do it the old-fashioned way. They park it on their driveway and throw a for sale sign on it, even on their front lawn. I found this one. Point of the matter is, keep looking around. Don't expect to find something by tomorrow or even the week after. You just gotta keep an eye out for it. Something will pop up. In my situation, I wasn't looking for this particular car, or even a car at all. I just happened to see it every time I used to drive on my way to work, and this is how I ended up buying it. If you don't have a dealer's license and you're not running a business and you're just looking to do a couple quick flips just like me, once or twice a year, without being in a rush, with just taking your time, then this is perfect for you. And this is where I tell you that the best place where you could get your vehicles is from private owners. Why? Negotiation power. Think about it. You have cars that are out there that people don't want to spend the time or their money into fixing them. Think about it. A front bumper cover is hanging. What does it cost to get that fixed? A check engine light, a ABS light, airbag light, noise coming from the engine, noise coming from the axle. I don't know, it needs tires, maybe a door is a little banged up or something like that. This is where your skills come into place. This is where your negotiation power takes over. You look at what Kelley Blue Book's fair value is, and you just make a reasonable offer, and at that point you just bought your first flip, or you start negotiating from there.
So as we can see here, this car has pretty clean oil. If I had to guess, I would say that someone knew that the drain plug gasket was leaking, or either the oil pan threads are stripped and they just kept on adding oil. Maybe at one point it ran so low on oil, they just parked it, topped it off. They said, well, let's just sell it. I don't know. Point of the matter is, we'll wait till that drains completely. We'll inspect the oil pan and see if by just putting a new drain plug gasket it'll fix the problem. If not, well, I guess we'll have to get a new oil pan, because the threads are no good. Either way, that's not so bad of a repair, just replacing the oil pan. If it is the oil pan threads that are damaged, I'm hoping for the drain plug gasket to be the problem. Let's just go ahead and finish draining, and we'll wait. Okay, so what I noticed when I was down there was that when I took out the drain plug, this is the drain plug that came out of there. This is an aftermarket drain plug, and the washer seal doesn't look that bad, but there is a black O-ring around it that it was crushed. I only took half of it out. My guess is this thing had a leak all along. They tried to fix it with an aftermarket drain plug. I don't know what happened. I hope they didn't over tighten it. From what it looks like, the oil pan threads still look okay. I'm gonna go ahead and not take a chance, and I'm gonna order a factory OEM drain plug. And also, the oil filter and the oil pressure switch is right here. I don't see that being more than a 10-minute job to replace it. And I also don't see that being more than $20. So I'm gonna go ahead and order that as well. And I'm gonna replace that. We're gonna head add oil, run the car, and see what happens.
Alright, so hopefully you didn't fall in love with your first flip and pay too much for it. I know I didn't. Do you want to guess how much I paid for it? If you guessed under $1,500, you're right.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and proceed with the oil pressure switch replacement.
I ended up paying $1,400 for this car. Now, I do have to admit that my years as an automotive technician did play a big role in the sale of this car. I mean, I think if anybody else would have jump started this car and got it to run and heard the excessive loud noise that was coming out of this engine, they would have ran away. They would have definitely said, no, I don't even want it for free.
Okay, so here's our old pressure switch, and here's our new one. Okay, and we're gonna go ahead and torque that to 20 Newton meters.
And this is why you see me here starting out by replacing the oil pressure switch, which was what was triggering the oil pressure light to come on. Now I'm going to highlight 3 important key factors here that I think are very crucial when flipping a vehicle.
And after that, we put our new oil filter back in. Make sure you want to lube up the gasket in here before you put it in. Add some oil in, start it up, see what happens.
But before I do that, why don't you go ahead and smash that like button and click subscribe to see more of my future content. So those 3 important factors, guys, is going to be the price you pay for the car, the money you put into the car, and third, the time it takes you to sell. Why is this important? Well, if you pay too much for the car, what kind of profit do you think you're going to make? You see what I'm saying? That's why I mentioned before, don't fall in love with the car. Go see the car and be willing to walk away from it. Now, how about the money you put into the car? Assuming you're doing all the labor yourself, okay, because this is what flips are all about. You putting in the work yourself, all right? Let's just say the car needs tires, needs brakes, wiper blades, oil, whatever, belts, you name it. Don't just drive to the nearest store and get everything from there. I'm gonna tell you right now, the best deal on parts that you could get, it's online. 100%. It always works for me. Don't treat this car as if it's your own car. Put in no K&N air filter. Don't be putting royal purple oil. None of that stuff. Basic stuff is what's gonna be.
One quick thing I noticed is that I wanted to take out this filter or screen and make sure it's not clogged up or anything.
You're seeing me right here changing an oil filter and using Mobil 1 oil. Sure, I do that because I go to my local Walmart.
It doesn't look like it is. Pretty clean and clear. And drop that back in.
They usually have it at a good price, and a lot of times I just buy it online and pick it up, and somehow I just find it at a better deal if I just order it online and just pick it up at the store. Another place where to get good deals on parts, actually I would say more like the first place, will be eBay. Good old eBay. Think about it. You have all these independent sellers buying all kinds of parts in bulk, right, and selling it in like this marketplace that is very competitive. So what do they do to stay competitive? They price their parts in order to beat a lot of the local parts stores. And I'm gonna tell you one thing, most of the parts that I got for this car, it was right from eBay, and I'm gonna share with you exactly what I paid for him. And
never want to over torque an oil filter, just hand tight. In my case, I had a lot of oil in my hands, so I just wanted to get rid of some of that grease.
Perhaps after you get done watching what I show you, you're gonna want to shop from them if you haven't shopped from them before.
Plug the connector back in.
Now hopefully you don't blast me in the comments from buying parts on eBay, but most of the parts that I got with them were pretty decent quality, I would say.
And add our oil.
Now let's talk about from the moment you buy it to the moment you actually sell it. You don't want to sit on this car for too long because remember, cars depreciate in value. But you also don't want to try to rush and sell it right after you get it because you want to brag about how fast it took you to flip it. No, make a list, go over with a fine-tooth comb and make sure every item in that list has been addressed, at least fixed, and everything is working. Any kind of abnormal engine noise, any type of road noise, cracked windshield, sagging headliner, anything like that would like draw the attention of the buyer. And by the way, on this one I had a sagging headliner, which I paid someone to professionally come and rewrap it. If you want to see that video, I'll link it right above. And based on my experience, you shouldn't have a problem with a buyer haggling you down on the price of the car because of any defects they find in that car. So from my experience, the best you could get your car to near perfect working condition where nothing needs attention right away, you're pretty much guaranteed to get your full asking price.
Okay, so you guys saw me lower down the car. Check the oil level. It's right about good. We're gonna start it up right after I hook up my battery. Should have enough juice. I did charge it while the whole time when I was parked here. We're gonna recheck the oil level after we turn it off. But first I'm excited to see what's going on here and what happens to the oil light. Now I did notice that the oil pressure light starts flashing when you start driving it. But the light used to come on when the car was running. So we'll see what happens with that light now that we have our oil pressure switch installed.
And I don't know about you, but if I see that the buyer is actually very interested in the car and offers me a lesser price than I was asking for, if it's within a reasonable offer, yeah, sure, I'll knock off a couple $100. After all, most buyers will be happier knowing that they paid less than what the car was actually priced for. And that's of course if I have room within my budget, if I've been annoyed with way too many phone calls and text messages, and the car has just been sitting for a little longer than I wanted to. But instead, if you have your first potential buyer just within hours of you posting it up for sale, you may want to consider that because most likely this car is going to get a lot of attention and I'm pretty sure you'll receive an offer pretty close to your full asking price. Also, I do want to emphasize one more thing.
Alright, let's give it a crank.
You want to sell a good car that's going to be safe on the road and it's not going to come back and hunt you. What I mean by that is that I actually sold this vehicle right out of my driveway with absolute confidence because I knew exactly what I was selling, and if there's anything wrong, you want to make sure you disclose that to the buyer so that they are aware of what they are getting.
Okay, so you heard it start for the first time. Our oil pressure light is still on. So we're gonna check our oil level. We're gonna drive it.
Alright, so that was my take on the 3 important factors when flipping a vehicle.
Okay, so our oil level's low. We're gonna add some oil.
Now let's talk about what actually went wrong, or did we just get lucky here? No, just like I mentioned earlier, my experience in automotive did play a key role on here. You see, from the very beginning I knew that this could have been something related to oil pressure. I have heard a car with no oil pressure before and it doesn't sound anywhere close to this.
Okay, we're perfect. We're right on the money. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm actually gonna drive it.
I knew that the problem wasn't something that was internally mechanically wrong with the engine, because when you have something going mechanically wrong like the oil pump, there's no oil being circulating or pumped throughout the engine, which means there's no lubrication against the internal moving parts, which will then create a very loud disturbing noise that, believe me, you'll never forget that type of noise. Now let's get back to the live video here. This is only about, I would say, 30 seconds pulling out of my driveway and driving around the neighborhood. I want you to pay real close attention to what's going on here in the dash. Do you see the oil pressure light coming on and then eventually it just goes away? We'll talk about that in a minute. Speaking about disturbing noise, do you hear this? Listen to this. Yeah, that's the sound of tires, but not normal tires, worn out tires. Ever heard of the term chopped tires? Well, this is what it sounds like. That's annoying, isn't it? Needless to say, I ended up replacing these tires. Anyways, let's get back and talk about the engine rattle noise, and then I promise I'll get back to you and let you know what ended up happening with the oil pressure light. So back to the engine rattle noise. Yeah, there was no engine rattle noise. I am not getting technical here because I'll make this video very long, but what it comes down to is that car ages and you rack up mileage, the high pressure fuel pump, which sits on top of the valve cover and is driven by the camshaft, does tend to wear and degrade. This is a normal characteristic of this year, make, and model, so we are just going to leave it as is because we only hear it at cold startup. Other than that, when it's driven at normal operating temperature, it's completely fine. Now let's fast forward several days later.
Alright, so today's an exciting day because I finally got the window motor I was hoping to get to fix this door. Now, this car it's got some weird problems. So, if you're not familiar with Volkswagens, and I've been out of the Volkswagen game for a while, at least on the electrical side, they have some sort of electrical systems where when you put a new motor on, you have to code it. It's pretty much just insert the scan tool on there on the OBD plug, and then you communicate with the door control module. You put a new code in and make sure that that code is for that year, make, and model vehicle with the features that it already has. This particular car, I happen to get a used motor just because the OEM brand new one was very expensive. Excuse the birds. And I put the motor in. Window works fine. However, when I communicated with the car, the codes that were on there cleared. I still get some codes for steering angle sensor, tire pressure, the climate control unit, and now what's showing up is the left rear door control module, no communication, which I didn't get that before. So what we're gonna do is order a new left rear door control module that comes with the window motor. This is the right rear window motor, and this is a module. So it's all one unit. You can't get it separately. It's one unit altogether. This is the old one right here. You can't physically see if it's bad. Internally, it's got to be, there's got to be something going on in there where it's not feeding back signal to the CAN bus system, and that's why it's showing no communication. But this one's finally communicating with our system. The left rear window motor, for some odd reason now, is not communicating in the CAN bus system, so I went ahead and ordered a new one. The other problem that we had with this car was that the AC was not working. Now, I did notice that in the climate control unit, when you turn the speed knob, 1, 2, and 3, you can hear a little, I guess I could describe it as a crackling noise. But I mean, you didn't hear nothing. You didn't hear the blower motor come on. Now you did hear the AC compressor kick on, which told me that the AC system pretty much was good and no trouble as when it comes to the mechanical compressor, expansion valve, anything like that. The refrigerant side of it was fine. It was an electrical issue we were looking at. I pulled the AC control climate control unit out since I knew that it was making some type of noise, just to visually look at, you never know if there's been rodents in this car, has been chewing on the wiring or whatever. You just never know. So this car was sitting on somebody's front yard. It was covered full of leaves, acorns, you name it. That attracts rodents. So it wouldn't surprise me that was, there would have been some chewed up wires behind here. So what I did was I visually looked at it. I said, okay, it looks good. And I fed power and ground to the blower motor, and no, it doesn't work. So what I did was I took the blower motor out, and check this out. Now, if you ask me, I will tell you that this blower motor, the way they design it is designed to fail. Now, you got I've changed a lot of blower motors. I never seen something like this where it's exposed. The whole motor is just exposed. So if you do have, like, for example, if you have leaves in the cowl, if you have moisture, water, some sort of a little bit of water leak going into that, the HVAC system, it's going to work its way in there. And that's what happened to this. You can see, I'm not sure if you can see it on the video, but you see a lot of corrosion on there build up. Now here's the other side. You can tell that's had some moisture for a while. Look at the inside. Look at all that corrosion on there. Without a doubt in my mind, this blower motor is no good. So we're going to go ahead and order a new blower motor, and that's going to solve an AC issue. And after we get that window motor in and we get that blower, I'm going to go ahead and code that motor, install the blower motor, and everything should be straight, hopefully, and we don't run into any other issues. Then we'll have to take care of our headliner issue.
Now, if you didn't catch that earlier, I did end up mentioning that I hired a professional to get that completely rewrapped, and it came out great. The link is right above if you want to click on it and take a look at that video as well. Now, let me finish telling you about that oil pressure light. You saw me driving the car, you saw the light flashing, but then eventually it was just gone, right? Without getting too technical, I am going to take a guess and think about the German engineering. Now, for those of you who haven't worked on German vehicles, they have a different way of doing things. Let's just put it that way. I'm gonna say that the oil pressure switch was actually faulty and it was sending a false signal to the instrument cluster. And then the way this actual software that's written inside the instrument cluster gets feedback from all these messengers, and in this case, the oil pressure switch is a messenger, right? I guess it's got to see a certain engine RPM, certain engine runtime, or driving distance perhaps, in order to clear that light out. So eventually, that's all I had to do. Drive it for a few minutes here and there, install certain conditions that met that criteria, and it cleared that light off. That's just my best guess. But then again, I just diagnose, repair, and fix. I don't write this stuff. I want to, I wish, but I'm not there yet. Okay, so I'll go ahead and throw a few clips up here so you could watch what it took to get this car from the condition that it was in to a pristine condition when I finally was able to fix everything besides the two rear windows you see here. Okay, just to give you a preview of the semi-finished product, what a little water and soap with a little bit of your time can do. And I know you've been anxiously waiting to see exactly how much additional money I invested into this car. So without further ado, let's talk about that right now. Alright guys, so here is the final breakdown, and now I want you to keep something in mind. These numbers are from when I purchased parts about a year and so ago, and at the current time that I'm editing this video is February of 2025. So you know that the car market is still ridiculously high. It still hasn't normalized, but it's a little bit better than what it used to be. So parts are still going to be slightly high now, but this is the price of the parts that I got. I ended up paying $1,400 for the car. Now, remember I told you that as per your state, whatever rules and regulations they have, you can register up to 2 cars in my state, right, within 12 consecutive months. So I ended up paying $1,400 for the car, $172 to register it with the title and the tax and all that. And I had a tag that I transferred to it, and it was $475, which brings the total to $1,576.75, right? And then I ended up getting the oil pressure switch, the oil filter, window motors, the wiper blades, the cabin filter, the blower motor, the fuse. This fuse was actually, so remember that the blower motor I showed you earlier, that ended up getting a lot of moisture and it shorted out the circuit, so the 40 amp fuse blew. So obviously we replaced that fuse, put a blower motor, and that worked just fine. I ended up doing a rear brake job on this car just because they were metal to metal. And honestly, I ended up paying $48.30 on that one for brand new rotors and pads, believe it or not. And these were actually ceramic brake pads, which that's what you want to get, ceramic brake pads. You don't want any of that cheap semi-metallic stuff, because that stuff just crazy noise after you install it, a lot of brake dust. It's just, you want to get ceramic, that's the best. I ended up putting 4 tires on this car because you already heard the noise previously in the video, right? A lot of just real loud, awful noise when you're driving this car. I ended up putting a lug stud. If you don't know what a lug stud is, on in German cars they use lug studs versus lug nuts on regular cars, right? On domestic, and your Japanese cars use you have a wheel stud and you have a lug nut. Well, this is a lug stud because there was a lug stud that was missing. So I ended up purchasing that. And what you see here, Mitchell on Demand, this is the actual repair manual for this car. I ended up buying it from a buddy of mine, and this is what it cost me. And it was necessary because if I needed to look at wiring diagrams, if I needed to look at how the windows and the climatronic units, which I believe I talked about, everything works on this car, I needed a repair manual. I needed liable information about this car. So I had to pay. I had no choice. If you want to count this is just wax. I believe it was wax I bought because when I waxed the car and car scent, I put it on there. And then I ended up paying someone to rewrap the headliner. It cost me $275. And what you see here is retracting the rear brake calipers when I did that brake job. This has an electronic parking brake, right? So it has a motor on the back calipers. In order to retract it, you have to do it electronically. So if you don't have a scan tool that communicates with these cars, you need to get that. I have an OBD11, and let me show you what OBD11 is. OBD11 is just pretty much a Bluetooth dongle. You plug into your OBD port right? And then that connects to your either whether you have an Android phone or you have an Apple device. You download the app, and then it supports all these vehicles right here. Your Volkswagen's number one, BMW, and then you could customize too a lot of stuff on the Volkswagens and the Audis. And I guess you could click on other brands, see what other brands it has. But yeah, that was it. So it comes with, I think at the time that I bought it years ago, it came with a few credits already in the app, but I ran out of those credits and ended up purchasing. So to retract the brake caliper, right, it cost me $1.49. That's how much credits I needed. You know, I forgot what it was, whether it was 10 credits, 20 credits, I don't know. You could buy like 50 credits, 100 credits, you know, it depends, you know, 10 bucks, 15 bucks, 25, something like that. And then the dongle itself, it costs you, I think I paid like $70 at the time. I'm not exactly sure, I don't remember. This video is not anyway sponsored by OBD11. I'm just, you're seeing this on the list, so you're like asking what the heck is that, right? But it was only $1.49. Anyways, all these parts together equals to 904.43, and I already have 1576 into the car, right? Which gives me a $2,481, right? I sold the car, I marked it up for 4,700, and I came down on the price a little bit, and the car ended up selling for $4,400, which makes a profit of $1,918.82, okay? And the ROI on that is 77.3%. Now, if you don't not familiar with ROI is, it pretty much stands for return on investment. And what pretty much is saying is that, let me just explain a little bit to you. If I invested $2,400 into this, right, and I ended up making this much of a profit, that equals to 77.3%. Now, I don't know about you, and you could tell me in the comments below, but if you know of any investment vehicle out there that is going to give me 77.3% return on investment within like 2.5 months, and that's about the time I think it took me to sell this vehicle from the moment I got it, let me know. Let me know in the comments below, because this is amazing. Obviously, let's take in consideration a little bit that I had to, you know, do some work to this car, right? You know, it wasn't just a thing where you just buy and throw a for sale sign on it and you make this much money. No, I had to put some work into it. But you could do this as well too. This is what this video is about. Now let's talk about these parts right here, right? Because you may be asking yourself like, hey, these parts seem awful cheap, and they are. I search them now, and let's just go. We're not gonna go over the maintenance parts like the cabin filter, the wiper blades, and stuff like that. But at least let's look at this stuff like the oil pressure switch, right? So my favorite shopping website of all time is eBay, and I already talked about that before. So look what an oil pressure switch is going for. Now try to stick to popular brands out there, especially when you're buying something like an O2 sensor, a mass airflow sensor, something like that. But you can see here how much it costs, even after I bought this about a little less than 2 years ago, right? So let's look at the window motors. It cost me 50 bucks shipped. We look at the window motors here, and we're talking about used window motors, and these are also used, but you can see they have gone up in price, and that also depends on like the availability out there. So to give you a little word of advice here, for example, if you click on this person's let's see the window motor here, right? If you click on it and you see that he has 96.6% positive feedback, I would definitely purchase from him without a doubt. You can also see that they offer 60-day returns, free shipping, and I would honestly search within his store and see if he also has, let's just say in a scenario where you need both of the door motors, right? I always search for the rear left and the rear right and see if he has that, and then I will send him a message, see if he could do a better deal than that. You know, a lot of times you can save money on that. So let's move on and say the blower motor, right? So let's talk about a blower motor. Looks like it's gone in price too, right? We're talking about 50 bucks now. And they still come, I guess, exposed. The motor is just exposed with nothing covering it, where moisture and water is just gonna get in there and will not blow up, but it won't last. You get what I'm saying, right? And then a fuse. I guess you know that fuse doesn't cost that much, but rear brake pads and rotors, wow, 48 4830. That's yeah. I got that for 4830 a couple of years back. The cheapest I found it with a 10-year warranty, and this seller has a 97% feedback, so I would definitely buy it from him, and he does a free shipping. It comes with the pads and all the hardware that you need, right? $75 shipped. I still say that's a good price. $25, a little above than what I paid a couple of years back. I say that's pretty good now. And then four tires. Four tires. You heard what those tires sound like. Look at this. These are what the tire size. You gotta put the tire size on here, and eventually they'll ship them out for free. And obviously you have to pay for the install. I mean, I lucked that on that because I had a buddy that owed me a favor. So he works at a tire store. He installed them for me, and that's how I pretty much got those wheels, those tires installed for 256 bucks. And the rest I went over it, right? But let's just see. Let me show you something else. This is what I paid for back in 2023. We're talking about. Here to break. No, this is something else. Hang on. So this is the, here you go, brake pads and rotors for the Volkswagen CC right here. 4830, right? Four tires, 256, the fuse, wheel stud, what we got, a blower motor, right? And these are all new parts, by the way, except for the window motors. These were $49.99. Wiper blades, cabin filter. I guess I returned something here. Oh, that was another blower motor. Yes, they sent me the wrong side, but then I ended up purchasing both anyways. Here we go. So that's just it, guys. This is something that I love Eva just because of this. You definitely, like, you could search for all your parts, and eventually if someone has two of the parts that you need, you could hit them up and ask them if they're willing to cut you back on cost because of the shipping, right? Because it's shipping to the same address and everything, and potentially you could save money on that. And then going back to my drawing board here, the headliner ended up costing me $275 to get that replaced, and the guy was great. Came here, pulled it out himself, rewrapped it, and he was done in less than, like, well, because we were chit-chatting, it took about 3 hours or so, but he was great. There's a video on there if you want to click on it. But other than that, I would say that for a $1,900 profit, I will definitely do this again. And let me just tell you that yes, we did get a little bit lucky here. But if I had to do this again, half the price, right? Let's just talk about half of the profit amount. Half of 1,900 will be what? $950. Even if you have to do this much work to get $950, that's still a good amount of money, and the time that it's taking you to do this, right? Because I did this in my spare time, and I was in no rush to get done, and it was just something I did as a little side hustle, as a little, extra money on the side. All right, so I want to show you one more last thing, and this is my ad. And as you can see, the logo here is what? Facebook. And this is where I told you not to buy your cars, right? I didn't tell you not to sell your cars on here, but it's just, in my opinion, there's just a lot of competition where I live, right? To get cars at mechanic specials, decent prices for like cars that you could potentially flip. There's just too much competition on Facebook, so that's why it's like the one place where I don't look as much. But I definitely use this to sell it. And I want you to read my description. The way I write my stuff on here is just, I pretty much make it so that the buyers don't have any additional questions, so they don't literally ask me 1,001 questions about things that I've already have answered in the ad. Because at that point, then I know that they're pretty much not too interested into paying anywhere close to what I'm asking for. But also, let me show you the pictures that I take, because this is very important. Take great pictures and make sure your car's nice and clean. The only thing that I'm a little bumped about is that I didn't put tire shines on the tires, but it was a nice, beautiful day in my area, and I just didn't have tire shine, and I said, this is a good opportunity to take pictures. Let me go and take it. Because that same day, I ended up washing it. I power washed the engine as well, so I took a good picture of that. I even washed it, waxed it, and buffed it. Lightly buffed though. Didn't have too much like. All right, so you can see I took a nice picture of the front, of the right rear corner, the interior of the car, picture of the side. Just take good pictures. Pictures sell the car sometimes. A lot of times you could just look at the picture and say, you either want it or you don't want it. Make sure you take pictures so that the buyer knows what they're getting. I mean, a lot of the times people come from like somewhere far, so they want to see good pictures. Here's that brand new headliner that was installed. It sure makes a pop. The two-tone, the light beige with the black, it just looks awesome. To me, it should have came like that from the factory. And that's pretty much it. I just wanted to point that out to you. Little details like that, the way you take your pictures, the time of the day and the area, it makes a great difference. Anyways, if you feel like you got a lot of advantage from this video, if you feel like you learned a lot and now you're inspired to go out and get your first flip, go ahead and click that like button and consider subscribing to my channel. Thanks so much for educating yourself and making progress. You'll see me in the next video, and best to you.
Please like and subscribe.